So I've been using the iPhone 14 Pro ever since it came out, and there are a few real world things I want to talk about because those things are the only things that you guys will notice when using the phone day to day. The first of which is the dynamic island. Now, we all know what the island is, and we've all seen how cool Apple's promo made it seem to be. But the truth is, I don't care. Now, I'm not saying you won't care for it. You might. Some people like it, and some, like me, just don't really care for it. I just never really find myself using it at all. I mean, never, actually. I have the Apple Watch, so if I want to switch a song, I just click the Apple Watch and it'll switch the song. I almost never even use the island, and it's even annoying because anytime you're getting a phone call and you're using the phone one hand, the phone call pops up at the very top of the display. So you're going to have to kind of do some finger gymnastics to even reach up there to either end or answer the call. I use it so rarely that I don't even think it's one of the reasons to upgrade to the phone. It's just a cool thing. It's there. It's nice. No harm, no foul. In my previous iPhone 14 Pro video, I mentioned how the battery life was just not that great, and I'm happy a lot of you have actually corrected me. It's not the actual phone, it's iOS 16. iOS 16 is such a huge battery drain. It's ruining batteries on the 13 Pro's series of phones, the iPhone 13 Pro and the Pro Max, and we all know how beastly those phones were with battery. But once I actually downloaded iOS 16.0.1 and then eventually iOS 16.1 Beta 3, the battery life has actually gotten much better than just straight up on iOS 16. I'm now averaging about 6 to 6.5 hours of screen on time, and that's of course with the always on display turned on, with 5G turned on, with adaptive brightness turned on, basically out of the box settings. To me, that's pretty good considering that this is just the normal 14 Pro and not the Pro Max model. But do keep in mind, the 13 Pros are still getting better battery than the 14 Pros, even though Apple said that the 14 Pros should get an hour longer than the 13 Pros, but in fact, not really. In fact, you're getting like an hour less. So, yeah. Now, if you do enable adaptive brightness, that's exactly how you will reach the maximum brightness whenever you are outside in direct sunlight. And the differences is truly insane when compared to older iPhones. Many people thought that since the screen is now getting a lot brighter, 2000 nits, the brightest display on any phone, that it's going to start dimming. And that's kind of an issue with iPhones, with previous iPhones. You guys may have noticed this. If you have an iPhone, you go outside, you use it a lot, the screen will just dim out of nowhere. Well, I'm happy to say that that has never happened to me on my iPhone 14 Pro. I always take it for a run. Well, not anymore since I got the Ultra watch, so I can just listen to music from my watch. But before I had the watch, I was using the iPhone 14 Pro to go out on my runs. It was hot outside, direct sunlight. I was changing songs with Spotify, tweeting, texting. I know you're not supposed to do that when you're running, but I do it anyway. I did all that. The screen never dimmed on me, so whatever Apple did with the cooling of this phone, with the efficiency of the new A16 chip, whatever it is, it didn't dim, and for me, that's a good thing. Another thing that truly impressed me is the insane stabilization when using action mode. Not only is this the highest resolution action mode that is on any phone, you go up to 2.7K, whereas the competition goes up to 1080p, but it's also the most stable action mode that I have ever seen. It truly looks like you're on a gimbal. Well, not you, but the phone. The phone's on a gimbal. In this clip here, I'm simply walking normally, not trying to walk slowly, not trying to walk carefully, just walking normally, holding the phone with one hand. And in this clip, I'm sprinting. I'm not just running. I'm straight up sprinting on uneven pavement while holding the phone with one hand. It's insane how good the algorithm is for the action mode or whatever else Apple has going on with that toggle enabled. But you get some insane shots, and again, you're shooting at 2.7K, whereas the competition is shooting at 1080p, even though the competition started the stabilization mode way earlier than Apple did. Why haven't they upgraded it since? No one knows, but you damn well know they will now since Apple started doing it, so Samsung, I'm looking at you. Another huge benefit that you will notice in day-to-day life is the new cellular modem along with the upgraded 5G antenna bands. This phone is a monster when it comes to cell service and data speeds. So by a show of hands or by a show of likes, how many of you have seen bars on your phone? Then you open up Twitter, you open up Instagram, you open up anything and nothing is loading. Well, the iPhone 14 Pros have completely fixed that issue, again, thanks to that new upgraded modem and that new larger 5G antenna band. Anytime I see bars, I know I have service. Everything loads just fine. Again, depending on the speed of the connection. I'm not saying you're going to get connection everywhere. Of course you're not. It all depends on your carrier. But I know with T-Mobile in my city with the iPhone 13 or under, dude, I got service nowhere. My Android phones always got service. So whatever Android was doing, or not just Android, but whatever, in this case, Samsung. So whatever Samsung was doing with their antenna bands and their modems, it was absolutely obliterating what Apple was doing. But now they're on a level playing field. In my opinion, that is one of the biggest reasons to upgrade to the 14 Pros. If you have an iPhone 13 or under and you're just not getting good cell service, you're not getting good data speeds, you might want to consider getting this. I don't think it should be the reason to upgrade, but it's certainly a good reason to upgrade. Now, one cool thing I noticed with the always on display is just how smart it is. So, for example, if your iPhone is connected to Apple CarPlay, the always on display turns off to help save battery. That's pretty sweet. But also, if you have an Apple Watch and you leave your phone on a desk and then you go to another room, the phone will know that you walked away because the Apple Watch is with you, and the always on display turns off to save battery as well. And then once you come back in the room, the phone will know you came back into the room because of the Apple Watch, and then the always on display turns back on. So now you have the benefit of having the always on display, but not having it actually be on even though you're not around your phone to even look at it. So that is pretty darn sweet. Now, the cameras on the iPhone 14 Pros are not really that big of an upgrade over the 13 Pros. In fact, if you guys have seen camera comparisons on YouTube by now, you may have noticed the iPhone 13 Pro sometimes even takes the better image when compared to the iPhone 14 Pro. But what I can say is if you're using that 48 megapixel RAW mode, oh boy, you get detail. And in fact, you get so much detail, you get even more detail than Samsung's 108 megapixel mode. That's insane. I don't know what Apple's doing, but my God, it works. But again, remember, that's only when you're using the 48 megapixel RAW mode. Not everyone's going to do that. In the normal mode, yeah, you're not going to see a difference coming from the iPhone 13 Pro. You're just not. And those are honestly the only real world differences that I've seen with this phone compared to the iPhone 13 mini that I was using. I wasn't even using the iPhone 13 Pro. I was using the mini. Okay, so for me, this is a good upgrade because literally everything about this phone is better than the mini. But the 13 Pro, because I had the 13 Pro Max before I sold it and got the 13 mini because the 13 Pro Max is massive and I just got tired of it. So I've used the iPhone 13 Pro series of phones and this is not an upgrade. This is just a refresh. I highly recommend if you have the iPhone 13 Pro, keep it. Just keep it for one more year. If you have the iPhone 12 or under, it's a good upgrade. Another quick thing I want to mention, I didn't even expect to say this in the video, but I know some of you are curious. Call quality, fantastic. I have never had an iPhone with bad call quality, but if you guys are wondering, yeah, call quality when you're calling someone like this, fantastic. When you're calling someone on speakerphone, please don't do that in public or else I will butt into the conversation. Sounds good. When you're listening to music on speaker, again, don't do that in public, but if you do, please play a good song. Nice, loud, crisp, decent bass. I mean, it's a phone. How much bass are you really going to get, right? But it's punchy, sounds good, gets loud, does not distort. That's it. Overall, I like it. You know, it's not a bad phone. It's just not a good upgrade if you have the iPhone 13 Pro. If you guys have any questions on things that I didn't mention in this video, but you guys are curious to hear it from my perspective, do drop me a comment down below. I try to read them all, and I try to answer them all as well. And that's it. If you guys did enjoy today's video, definitely click that like button. And if you are new here, consider subscribing. This was Mark from Mark's Tech. Adios.